Okay, so um, this was our session. I'm trying to give you a little bit of a feel for what was going on at JSM. We spoke on Tuesday, August 5th. That's a significant date. You'll see why in a second. But I also wanted to mention the other talks. I think everyone has spoken at this meetup, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew who else was on the agenda besides Gina and me. So I started with a shout out to the ggplot2 Extenders Club. I don't need to explain here what the Extenders Club is about. And in fact, I didn't at JSM either because Gina took on that role. But the whole JSM presentation would not have happened without the group. It started as a discussion, anyone interested in presenting, and it just kind of formed from there. You can go on to the discussion board and see all of the conversation about that. And guess what? It's time to submit for 2026. So if anyone is interested in organizing that, uh, speak to me or just go ahead and start a discussion and we could get another one going. It's going to be in Boston in 2026. So I took on the role of kind of describing the ggplot2 extension ecosystem. And this was designed for an audience of people who use ggplot2, use extensions, but don't write them, and just kind of might be interested in, well, what's out there. I find with students, it's a little overwhelming. Well, there's hundreds of extension packages. How do they differ? Are they all formatted in the same way? Like, how do I enter this world of ggplot2 extensions? So I thought it would be easy to define what an extension package was, but it turned out that we spent a lot of time. And when I say we, I was working with Gina, but also with a student of mine, Vivian, who's going to medical school and is a total ace at coding. And so I want to give a shout out to her because she is going to be an amazing, amazing doctor with a very, very strong coding and statistics background. So one place to start in defining what is a ggplot2 extension package is the extension gallery. This is my numbers are, I believe, current to when JSM happened. I think it is still at 151 packages. So these are packages that the authors have submitted to the extension gallery. So they are self-defined as ggplot2 extensions, and there's quite a variety of things in the gallery. Okay, but we don't want to limit ourselves to only those 151 packages. There's tons of packages on CRAN that start with GG or capital GG. There are 273 packages. We would probably want to remove the ones that don't have anything to do with ggplot2. So graphical, Gaussian, or there's a couple of I can't remember what they are right now, but I knew at the time something with things with Gaussian in them that start with GG. So when you take those out, you're down to 254 packages. But if you look at CRAN as a whole, you will find that there are over 400 packages that depend on ggplot2, thousands that import ggplot2, and thousands that suggest ggplot2. So are these all extensions? Clearly not, but are some of them? Probably, because they probably do what some of the packages in the that start with GG or are in the gallery do. Basically, they provide these complete plots that are kind of wrappers to ggplot. I assume. I have not gone through 3,800 packages to see why they are importing ggplot2, but there's certainly like unturned stones in that group of packages that we're completely ignoring for our purposes. Interesting fact, over a quarter of the packages on CRAN either depend, import, or suggest ggplot2, and these are mutually exclusive. So it really is over a quarter. Um, if we take those, if we look at just the ones on CRAN that start with GG or GG and do mention ggplot2, taking out the ones that don't, about half of them are in the extension gallery. So we still have this group, that maybe we should be inviting to add their packages to the extension gallery. There are also few that are in the gallery but not on CRAN. Some that are, I guess this is in the gallery. Let me try to think what I'm trying to say here. In that once were on CRAN. So, and these are packages that are not in the gallery, in the archive, and not currently on CRAN, right? So, the bulk is this really the GG. I mean, if you just had to go with one criteria, it would be the GG or GG beginning. But again, there could be a lot of other stuff there that we are not counting. But this was our universe for what Vivian and I looked at, trying to come up with a typology of what's going on with these packages. This is more just kind of for fun. What were the first ones on CRAN? Obviously, I can't count. I don't have first release dates for the packages that were never on CRAN, but ggplot was in 2006, ggplot2 2007. It took almost 3 years for the first extension, ggally. Okay? And it took over 6 years from ggplot to have the first 8 extensions, because we're not going to count these two. And then things start. I looked at the last 10, and it was kind of funny because a bunch of these were actually JSM talks. So people who were getting their packages in on CRAN right under the wire, which makes sense. So as you can see, in 1 month alone, there were 6 editions. This is the first time that they appeared on CRAN. I looked at the number of packages to have their first release on CRAN by year. This is a total of 292 packages, and we see a really, really clear trend. Like, you don't need a lot of sophisticated data visualization to see that there's a big jump from 2015, it started to go up, and then there's an explosion in 2016, and the number of new packages stays really high, pretty consistent. So what happened between 2015 and 2016? A number of things. Okay. Hadley started working on the extending ggplot2 vignette, coincidentally on August 5th, 2015, exactly 10 years before our talk. So that was kind of fun. It was sort of finished up by the end of the year, at the same time that ggplot2 2.00 was released, which introduced ggproto, which made it easier to create extensions. And then significantly, the ggplot2 second edition book was released. I thought it had included the information in the vignette. It does not, but it does reference the extension vignette. And it includes a list of add-on packages, which I think gets people thinking in that direction, that like there is this world, or there's starting to be this world of new packages that you can write or use. And this is the list of add-on packages that were included in the second edition. Some of these are still around. So Vivian and I Vivian mostly created this spreadsheet. We're really trying to look at all different aspects of the packages to try to classify them. We kind of went in like anthropologists and said, here's this island of ggplot2 extension packages. What do they look like? How do they cluster? What similarities do they have? And it got really messy really fast, and there was a lot of overlap. And I cannot say we started to have every time we started to have something that kind of made sense, there was some package that just completely messed it up. So we somewhat abandoned that, and I went with something much simpler. Okay. So I'm calling this the beginnings of a typology. The first category are what we've referred to here, I believe, as in-grammar extensions. And this is kind of like, if you look at the subtitles of the chapter in the third edition of the ggplot2 book on extending ggplot2. It's new geomes, new stats, new chords, new facets, right? New themes. Very, very straightforward, very, very clear to a ggplot2 user how they would incorporate a new facet or a new stat or a new geome into their workflow. It's just kind of adding pieces, adding new Lego pieces to their Lego set. Then we have category 2. This one was harder to name. I think complete plot. Sometimes I believe this was called out of grammar, but we thought that there was like a little too judgy, as my son would say. I think complete plots might do it. I had suggested auto plots, but apparently auto plots refers to something very specific and I intend something more general here. We could call them wrappers, but there's a very large variety of things that fit under this title. And I think it's trying to unravel that, I think, is important, because there are certain things that if you know how to use ggplot2, you would have no reason to use any of these extensions, because they're just trying to make things easier for someone who's new at it, and it serves a purpose, but it's a specific purpose. Whereas there are other packages that you could do, but like, for example, I have a package a wrapper package that creates biplots, because the code is this long and I don't want to have to do that each time. And I don't want to have to do the data calculation. So it just makes it easier, but it's still in category 2. It's not, I'm not creating new geomes, et cetera. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Then there's category 3, which you would not call in grammar, you would not call out of grammar. They're just not what was anticipated at all by the vignette or the chapter on extending ggplot2. I'm quoting June here, who called them variations in dialect tailored to domain-specific needs, which I thought was a really nice way of phrasing it. And I think another way to put it is that they extend ggplot2 in very elegant, unexpected ways. So maybe something like patchwork, or maybe ggtrace, or there's just all kinds of stuff out there. There are studio add-ins. There's all kinds of things that they're not wrappers, but they're not new components either, and they take ggplot2 in a new direction. So that's still pretty amorphous, but it's a direction, right? So I see these kind of 3 paths for trying to map out what the landscape looks like. So at the conference, I ended there and turned it over to Gina, but I am going to just add a little bit more so that we can get the discussion going here, and you can help me with this typology. So focusing on that second group, I think that one way to think about them is, and all of this is from the point of view of the user, right? I'm teaching, I've got students, I'm trying to think about like which packages to recommend, not recommend, how to approach this from that angle. I think there's a spectrum from like kind of total wrappers that you really can't do anything with. So they are completely out of grammar. Like you can't even add a theme. You can't add a title. You just get what you get, and that's it. Okay. And then there's some that are much, much more flexible. So you're basically giving it your data, it's doing something, but you could add geomes based on your original data. You could, of course, add themes, scales. It's doing some of the work, but still leaving it open to you to add layers. Then there's somewhere you could, because a key question is, does it transform the data? And that wrapper function may or may not do that. If it transforms the data, you can't add geomes with the original data because all the scales are different, but you could add new layers with data equals and with a new data set, going back to your original data where it's not transformed, if it makes sense in terms of the scales. Or you could maybe annotate because you have the scales from the rendered plot, things like that. So just for a couple examples, waterfall, is one where you can't, because the data is transformed, you cannot simply add a new geome because you don't, it's changing the form. It's doubling the whatever it's doing. Doesn't make sense. You're done with data layers, at least based on that original data. But you could change themes and other kinds of things. Serve minor, which I believe is a pretty popular package, doesn't return a ggplot2 object. So I guess I didn't, did I get this here? Yeah. Just adding theme classic gives you an error, I guess, because it's creating different panels and then you're just, though I would have expected it maybe to like with patchwork, I think it would have just operated on the last one, but it doesn't do that either. So you're just really kind of limited to what the parameters are of the wrapper function that it uses. So I will stop here. I would love to hear everyone's feedback. I guess maybe after Gina speaks, or I don't know how you want to do this, Gina.
Oh, no, we can dive in a little bit now, and then I guess I'm not looking forward to speaking, so we can look at some of these questions in the chat too.
Okay. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, I think so. Will asked about Shiny apps. And I think,
Yeah, I wonder if, because you had like what, over 3,000 packages importing ggplot. I wonder if a bunch of those are like published Shiny apps or something, which are just importing it to then show a plot or something.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Tim that those maybe just don't include, they're not extension packages. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
question
yeah.
about whether the complete plots are extension packages anyway, right? Like you could, I think we kind of need more vocabulary for the different types of extension.
Yeah. I was also surprised by how many, or rather how few packages go against this kind of GG naming trend. I wonder if some of that comes from kind of the direction from which people are building the packages. Like when I built my deep time package, for example, like I didn't have in mind like, oh, this is going to be a ggplot extension package. I had in mind, oh, this is going to do this field specific thing. And then I was like, okay, and then I'm going to use ggplot. So I wonder if, I don't know, some of
Yeah, I
these
think that that's
packages.
true. But I don't know if that means that the like what you say include is very different from someone who just decided to like put all of the graphic stuff in a separate GG package. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of those that import ggplot2 and have a bunch of graphs that go with whatever statistical methods they're doing aren't fundamentally different from, they're just more stuff combined into a single package. But it's all a guess.
For the purpose of this discussion, um, I think it's probably misguided to think about what's in the tails of the distribution. You know, all the all the packages that mention ggplot in one way or another. I think it's much more important the typology that Joyce gave a few slides ago. I think can really be helpful in our thinking about what is a ggplot extension, not just a casual GG date, a one night stand, but the categories of the three categories, I think, are a good way to start to look at the world of things that we guys and gals should be interested in. Joyce, I wonder if you would share that spreadsheet. It would be really interesting to look at how you categorize the packages, what comments you made. Hey, there might even be a multivariate analysis somewhere in there in your data.
Absolutely. As long as you understand it's a work in progress
Of
and I'm
course.
not held to any kind of conclusions that might come out of that spreadsheet. We were, it's partial, I don't remember at what point we stopped, but not all of the rows are complete, and we kept changing things as we were going. So it's probably a big mess, but I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, I also had a feeling that like if you think about things from like a workflow point of view, for whatever say like data structure or like data wrangling tool that you provided, or even modeling tool, there's necessary like having like a visualization tool. So which a lot of people would like use ggplot as like a by default visualization tools. So in that sense, like there could be a lot of dependency on ggplot in terms of like it's more probably falls under the autoplot type of category where like they provide functionalities for like a basic plotting given their wrangling or modeling tool, and they have like a ggplot as a plotting function. It's just more through like a workflow point of view. In my sense, but I feel like most of those applications are probably in the second category, which are like autoplot. It's like a quick, simple plot visualization of what can be done.
Right. Yeah. So that's what makes it tricky though, because there's certain things that are just they're not adding new components, like even some, well, no, maybe that's not a good example. ggparty, I would say, is, that's adding new geoms, new geom node, geom, and things like that. But there's some that like sort of in my mind, from the user's point of view, qualify, even if they're just wrappers, they sort of qualify as extensions because of the amount of work that it would take to replicate that, right? Whereas others are just, you know, really, did you need to make a separate function to do this? So, but from
Yeah,
a theoretical point of view, it's hard to make a distinction.
because yeah, because like say if in a geom there it could be like a wrapper of a lot of like computing to categorize the specific things and then pipe into the geom. So that could be like a separate true ggplot extension rather than like wrapper.
Yeah.
Also, I think for category 1 and 2, there could also be impure extensions. So, like an example, if Will went the other way with DTime and mostly statistical methods and data wrangling tools and other stuff to work with in his field, and has a little bit of ggplot2 extension on the side, then it's technically an extension, but it's mostly for something else. And I think an example of this is MetR. MetR is a package by Elio Campitelli, if I recall that name correctly, which is a lot of meteorological functions, but also some ggplot2 extensions on the side. So that is not a separate category, but maybe a note to make. As well as for category 2, you can have something more granular, like autoplot is a generic that you can extend to automatically make a plot for your data, but you also have auto layer, which doesn't make an entirely new plot, but just wraps your data structure to easily make a layer out of it, or several. And it's more towards how you'd use extensions with these layers and less about wrapping a complete plot in a function.
Yeah, so that like kind of hybrids. There's sort of hybrids, yeah.
I have to leave shortly, but one comment that I would have is that in each of the other comments there were exemplars, or there were certain packages that each person had in mind when they were thinking about each of the categories. And I think that kind of thing can be really helpful. Obviously, there's not there aren't binary distinctions here. There's kind of a continuum, and some packages do both, and some packages kind of do weird stuff and so on, where they blend features of different ones. But I think having in mind some kind of paragon, like, okay, this is like classic type 2, or I can't remember exactly the typology you gave, Joyce, but this is a classic type 2 kind of package. This is a type 1, kind of just giving me stats and geoms, kind of purely extending the grammar package. I like that framework a lot. It seems to be really natural.
I think I'm going to start a discussion on the discussion board, and I'll post that slide with my categories, and then people can tear it up and give examples and talk about hybrids and all stuff like that.
And this may turn into a paper. Is that okay to say, Joy? It's too late. I
Yes,
said it.
you said it.
So
No,
yeah.
it's approached by Jürgen. If I don't know if anyone, Jürgen's Semantics, and he's an editor that they do reviews basically, and so since this is kind of a review, he was interested in putting it together and turning it into a short paper. So we'll see where it goes.
Is there like a journal or things journal you're targeting at this stage?
Oh yeah, it's an invited review paper
For annual
for
review.
it's computational statistics.
Okay, nice.
Is the journal, but he's looking for more authors. So if anyone has ideas on reviews, it can't be new research. It has to be kind of a review of the field. Just send me an email, Jay. I'll put and I'll forward the information that he gave me. And then you can be in touch to see if you have something that would work.
Did it seem like June's paper? Because June has like a written up paper. On
I know that they are in talks. I don't know what the outcome is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned to David that I'd like to hear more about ggmaps since it's such an early extension project. But I think you responded shudders to that. Because David and I and a few others, we had dinner and he was talking about like Hadley's job talk at Rice, which I was like, oh my gosh, like, those were the early days. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Similarly with the ggmap, I maintain it, and there's probably 5,000 GitHub issues that are logged on it or something that I can't handle. But I was thinking, just as Joyce was talking, where would something like ggmap fall in this? And this was so early that there wasn't a lot of precedent for that kind of thing. But it plays this weird game of kind of changing that base ggplot part, kind of that base layer. And it's like, well, where would you put that?
Right. So a big clue was like whether the package uses what is the initialization function. And so you have sort of two, I think, category 1 types. One where you're just adding individual pieces. So there's a lot of stuff in like, say, ggforce, where it's just like, okay, another geom, right? But then you have like Corey's packages, right? Like gg alluvial, where you start with ggplot, right? I can't remember. The initialization function is ggplot, right?
As
Or
something
is it
off the sort of category 1, maybe order is a better example, or are you going to something else?
I was just thinking in terms of the fact that like your packages are complete plots, but as components. So it's almost like an alternative grammar. It like follows the whole framework of ggplot2, but you're designing, well, let's go with ggalluvial, right? Like it's not like geom stratum would be used with some other plot somewhere. Like you're designing a collection of geoms that work together.
I see what you mean. Yeah, they are. It's hard to couple. I hope I designed them to couple as well as I could figure with existing stats and geoms. But you're right. It's there's not too much to couple them with. So yeah,
But it makes sense. It makes sense. Like you're yeah. And there's another one, GG genomes, which is very, very modular. So it follows, see if I can I'm going to share my screen for another second. So this is the example from GG Genomes, but you can, if you look at it broken apart, you know, this is 9 different genomes put together. So it completely follows the spirit of ggplot2, but it's not pieces that you can add to some other plot. So, and this, you know, there's a different initialization function, but I wouldn't, it's not a wrapper. It's just it's a data transformer, basically. I want to make sure we have time for Gina's talk.